Hello and welcome to this week's look at the world of action and stunts on film and television. How are you? Welcome to this week's look. Last weekend, if you're in the UK and Ireland, you're a fan of racing, you may well know that last weekend was Grand National weekend here in the UK. The world's biggest steeplechase. It's changed a lot since the 70s and 80s for safety reasons, but nonetheless, it's still a big sporting fixture. It was a packed crowd for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday meeting, and we had one of those extraordinary moments. The horse I Am Maximus went on to retain his Grand National victory. He won in 2024, came second last year and won it again this year. First horse to do so since Red Rum, the great Red Rum, in 73, 74 and 1977. Won it three times, but ran 73, 74, came second 75 and 76 and won it again in 77. That's not bad going. I mean, that really is pretty spectacular. And I Am Maximus, pretty spectacular in that respect. So huge, I thought, huge fun. And then I thought, well, why don't we look at a movie that's Grand National based? There aren't many to choose from. There are two big ones. Champions, of course, the great story of Bob Champion, who won the 1981 Grand National on Aldenite. He came back from cancer and the horse came back from a series of breakdowns to run in the race and win emphatically. But there's not a great deal of footage of that, if I'm perfectly honest. Certainly not enough that would warrant being able to use it in the show from a copyright perspective. However, there is certainly from the race point of view, there's a great deal. So I must thank this particular YouTube user, because they are the ones that have provided the footage, and I thank you for that. And I must also thank TCM, who not only provided their footage but also had some additional pieces that they were able to give me, which I thought was lovely. Thank you for that. So we're having a look predominantly at the race itself. Of course, the Grand National, based in Liverpool at Aintree Racecourse, has been since its beginning. But this movie, an American movie, and was shot in Santa Monica in California. They recreated the race, they recreated the track, or elements of the track, certainly. They created all the fences from scratch just by looking at pictures and of footage of what had gone before. This movie came out in 1944, and the story is based in the mid-1920s, I would say. So they're looking at races around that sort of time. And they've created something very, very special. Not terribly accurate, but when you consider that from the 1983 movie Champions, which was the recreating of certain sections of the race. So they had racing consultant Terry Biddlecombe, ex-jockey, of course, but he was responsible for the recreating those sections that they did for the film. And then you had stunt coordinator Richard Graydon, who was arranging the falls and the incidents that happened along the way, and the doubling for lead actors, for instance, and stuff of that nature. Whereas here in 1944 in National Velvet, there is no footage they can use. They have to create it from scratch, and they have to do it for real. So they bring in a huge group of jockeys who are prepared to ride and jump the fences. That's no problem. But there are one or two which are employed to do a series of falls, coordinated falls. And when you look at the footage, you'll see that it looks quite chaotic, but they've been given instruction beforehand. So there's a number of falls there which take place. And then there is some doubling which takes place of the lead actors as well, including Elizabeth Taylor, who was 11, 12 years old, I think, when the film was made. And on a couple of occasions during the film, you'll notice that her double looks terribly adult and much taller, and that's because they are. But we'll get into that a bit later on. So we're going to start firstly prior to the race, and then we will go into the race and talk you through it. And it goes like this. So this is the opening part. I just wanted to show you a couple of bits here in relation to Elizabeth Taylor and the doubling. That's her. That's clearly not her. And then that's her in the studio with a background projection, right? So this is what we're looking at. But this is very much her. I mean, look at the horse back. You know, the ears are back, doing the business, doing some of the jumps. And that's a great shot. I mean, look how fabulous that is. A girl at one with her horse and the sea in the background. Now here, practicing the jumps, and this one very clearly isn't her, and the stunt double appears to be wearing a mask, which is very odd indeed. So it's obviously a male rider. In this instance, they're saying, look, this is the water jump, and it doesn't go terribly well. So when we slow it down and have a look, this is Alice Van Springsteen, who was her double for many, many years. Appears to be taking one foot over the other side. The stirrup has gone from this side, so she's having to kick free and then kind of gets hung up with the other foot there and then just drops to the floor. Whether the purpose was to land in the water, I don't know. Maybe it was a comedic moment that they couldn't do twice, but the way in which the horse arrives there, meaning that in order to get to the water you're going to have to go early because of the way in which the jump is being taken, you know. So they do it again and over she goes. Happy days. On the course itself, I wanted to bring your attention to some of the little bits and pieces here. This is all created. That's a stand that's been built. This is not the course. This is in Santa Monica on location at the ranch where they built the whole thing. So that's all real. And everything here is real. And they've got a water jump there and all the immediate crowd here at the front. That's all real. When you then look down here, everything to the left at the top of the screen is all painting. That's all painting, and that's all painting in the background too. There are no people in those stands. Those stands don't exist. That is a painting. That's absolutely remarkable. That's a matte painting. It's absolutely spectacular. They're queuing up for the start now. Back in the days when they used to have a 3-strand tape that just went up in the air, that doesn't happen anymore. It has to go horizontally away from the horses. And so she's, of course, in order to ride in the race, she's had to have a haircut, right? Because it's men only. And she's posing as this jockey from the UK. So, and then back in those days, it was 40 plus in the field. Nowadays, it's now limited to 34. And they're off. And there's always one who doesn't really want to go. So we take it up. And a lot of this is done with a tracking vehicle, which runs alongside all of these fences, all purpose built for the purpose of this particular sequence. You'll see a lot of the riders, they jump and then they take a pull. They are pulling on the reins because they're not wanting to go at full tilt. But this is 1944, 43, probably filmed in 43 for 44. So they are having to maybe take a pull along the way. Some of these falls are real, some are created, and also for the purpose of the exercise, the helmets that they are wearing, they are cork caps is all they're wearing. There's no chin strap on those. There's nothing to hold them in place. They get kicked off. Look at the B flag on the top of the fence. This is Beecher's Brook. This is what they've used the equipment. Look at that. What a magnificent picture of that horse in full stretch. King Charles, amazing. Big jumps. Now, this is the canal turn. Realistically, down at the bottom right-hand corner where the flag is, that's where you should be jumping because you come across and you take the angle. Obviously, a lot of these... Oh, one's decided I'm not going. Oh, and there's a typical fall there of going into it and going, no, thank you. This is a very impressive shot. They have cameras in the fences these days, you know, to try and get that excitement factor. This guy, whoa, jumps right on top of the fence. Now, going left-handed, that's the first circuit complete, and they're coming around here. There's a couple of fences down the straight, that one, and then they go and jump the chair, which is the biggest fence on the course. The only problem here, of course, is they've got the ditch in the wrong place. It should be on the takeoff and not the landing side, but nevertheless, it's been created for the film, and it's a big jump out over the top. You know, audiences weren't too fussed back then. And then the long jump over the water. Again, brand new water jump created, and we're over. And then they go out on the second circuit. And again, everything to the left is a painting. This is a tracking vehicle. Oh, another fall there. And reaction from the crowd. And they're working on course commentary, of course, because there wasn't anything, no video screens or anything of that nature to watch back then. And again, you just see from a film perspective, these riders taking a pull. This guy on the left-hand side here, just gently checking across. They're all pulling tight. They're not race riding. Big ditch on the takeoff side of this. You see the way the fence moves? Big hole in the fence. Never jump a fence where a hole's in it. Don't jump the hole. Jump the fence. Ooh, another good lap. And of course, they're trying to get the pie up as far as possible. The horse that Elizabeth Taylor is riding. Here's Beecher's the second time. Oh, and you saw somebody come across the fence. Now, I believe this is arranged. He's pulling that horse with the left rein, if you can see it. He's pulling it across. The horse is deciding, where am I going? And then arrives right on the edge of that for other horses to then approach and go, wait a second, I'm not entirely comfortable with this. And this guy here actually drops down into the ditch, which was a very common thing that used to happen. His jockey, in a moment, we will see him running away from the fence on the further shot, but that's nothing unusual here. All the horses from records suggesting that they're all absolutely fine. But now watch this guy over here. Oh, my back. Oh, yeah. And of course, the horse is stood in the brook at the bottom. That was quite common back in the day. There is no major drop anymore. They've stopped that. They've taken that away considerably, but it used to be a 5-foot hedge with a 6-foot drop. Here's the canal turn again. And again, they're not really learning, but this camera angle says they're running into camera. Oh, little fall there. Again, canal turn does take falls from time to time. And slowly but surely, watch this guy here, go right over the top of down onto the floor. His cap comes off, look, and then he stands up and has to do a little side way and just get out of the way of the horse. Nice movement there. Smooths his hair back into position before putting his cap back on. Oh, that's a typical fall. That's speed. You jump big, catch the top of the fence, and then the undercarriage doesn't come down. There is no right-handed track. Aintree's a left-handed track, but for reasons better known to somebody else, they're filming these horses going round to the right. Anyway, and again, slowly but surely, and this is a camera vehicle here, of course. You know, they're behind a camera car. You again see the jockeys just taking a pull. Maybe they're in the real race they would be jockeying for position, but they're not doing that here. Again, back to the tracking camera here. And you see them just hanging on to each other. And this is the final, this is the elbow, this is the straight up towards the line, and they're taking a pull. Nobody's really going for broke. Back to the back projection again. Elizabeth Taylor looking over. That's not her. That's not Alice Van Springsteen either. I believe that to be a male jockey, and I think that this particular fall through here, when they go through the line as the winner, then she falls off because she's absolutely exhausted, sliding down, ba-boom, and hits the ground. Now let's look at that again. Swings the leg over, the cap comes off, and you've got to be the horse is really shifting and sliding down, not wanting to go underneath the horse, but it's tricky not to at this point. Gets clipped on the way out. And I think that is pretty spectacular as a dismount. That's pretty spectacular, and certainly not something that you'd want to do twice. Who's this, by the way? Do you know off the top of your head? It's Dennis Hoey. He was Inspector Lestrade in the Sherlock Holmes movies with Basil Rathbone. Just throwing that in because I saw a face in the crowd that I recognised. And that is the end of this particular national. They go over to make sure she's okay. They put her on a stretcher. And they take her away, and the final shot that you will see here is the raising of the red flag. Red flag because you see the 28 has been taken down. They're putting it in there, but there will be a red flag because there is a steward's inquiry. Nowadays you get a tone, but red flag goes up because there is to be a steward's inquiry. And that's where we are. The end of the race. An extraordinary race, extraordinary journey. And I hope you enjoyed that. Right, there you go. That is National Velvet, a huge collection of bits. But for saying that they've created that from scratch, I think is absolutely magnificent. Also noted is those paintings in the background, matte paintings. So you've got the foreground, which is the fence, some of the stands and some actual people. And then behind that, you've then got the painting itself, which is the matte painting of all the other bits and pieces. And I think it's really very, very well. Of course, back then it would have been hand done. They do it digitally now, but it would have been hand done back then. So that was very exciting to see all of that and to point that out. And some of the doubling as well. And that fall over the water jump in the rehearsal at the start, I mean, that's a very, very heavy fall. And it's the double doing it. But if you remember, what had happened was that Elizabeth Taylor was rehearsing, and she did a great deal of the riding and some of the jumping herself. Not all of it, but a great deal of that horse riding is her, and she can ride a horse terribly well. If you've seen the film, there are moments where I think there's a car or bus going down the road, and she's riding through the field, and she's waving at the bus, and she's going. That's very much her, and the horse is at full tilt. Look at the old horse's ears; they're way back. I mean, she's absolutely shoveling on coal. And there are moments where, you know, some of the action here. Oh, fireworks, how exciting. I don't know why it's doing this either. Let's celebrate the moment. There it is, all done. Technology, where would we be without it? But there are moments in this where there are falls that take place. And what had happened with Elizabeth particularly was that she was rehearsing a jump. In the film, there would be a number of horses around her, but she was coming up to it and they rehearsed it, and it was just her on her own. And the horse, King Charles, who's playing Pie, very clever horse, comes in, doesn't see the stride. Sometimes you'll feel it and you'll go 1, 2, 3, up. You'll feel it as it comes through, and the horse has maybe thought, I'll just put an extra one in. And that's what he's done. He's put an extra one and he's fiddled himself over the top of it and chucked her off. Well, she's landed awkwardly. Elizabeth, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. Let's just get back on, which she did, and then went through it and did the jump herself. However, years later, it became very apparent that she'd actually fractured her back quite badly, and that wasn't discovered until much later on, and maybe there was an element of that in connection with painkillers and various other parts of her life. So it's a knock-on effect from a horse fall. And I know myself the remarkable pain that you have from a horse fall and how really debilitating it can be over time, particularly if you have, well, DNA like mine that doesn't heal very quickly and takes a very, very long time to get it done. So I understand what she was going through, but to do that, I think, is remarkable. And then if you take on board what happens later on, and what I mean by that is the sequel, and the sequel's called International Velvet. It was made in 1978, directed by Brian Forbes, and Nanette Newman, his wife, stars as Velvet Brown. She is Velvet Brown in this picture, and Tatum O'Neal is the character who comes to live with them after her parents have died in a terrible accident. She comes to live with the Browns, and from there it becomes very clear that she's very, very good horsewoman, and eventually goes to 3-day eventing. So they've taken it to a slightly different level with 3-day eventing. But Tatum O'Neal couldn't ride a horse before she started that picture. And she had about, 30 odd weeks of training, enabling her to ride over a period of time and get to a stage where she was really very, very good indeed, and could show jump and could ride 3-day event. It was very, very exciting. So I think both of these pictures together are well worth a look. National Velvet is always a classic. It's a great story as well. It's enormous fun. And it's got that sort of really feel-good factor about the whole thing. International Velvet, set in the 70s, a bit grittier, a bit of darkness about it. But again, a really very good story indeed, and well worth a look. But I hope you've enjoyed that. And next week, we'll do it all again with something else, I think. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, out every Wednesday. YouTube, of course, is out every Friday. There'll be a little button down here where you can click for subscription. So go ahead and do that. And, well, until next time, it's bye for now.